Oh my gosh, guys. Exciting times, exciting times. Guys, we're back with another episode of Just Context Podcast, episode 6. Um, we got some intriguing things to definitely talk about just so we can put some stuff in context and some stuff that I was feeling. I definitely want to take a stab at the WAP video based on I want to put some context around it. I've realized that a lot of people has taken an interest into bashing the song based on the sexuality of what was I would like to use the word producial content inside of the video based on what was done. I mean, I guess not to take me out of context, I did like the video. There's parts that I like and catchy. I guess there's a part that my wife likes, and I'm not sure if I should be saying out loud when she was like, "Oh, park that big mad truck into my little garage." So there's little catchy different phrases from the song that that I feel like has drawn some attention. But I've heard some celebrities and some people having some different thoughts, and I'm a little bit I don't want to use the word outraged by it because I guess in our community of music, men and some of my favorite songs, right? I've been doing the same thing. So I don't want to cast a balance on it for some sense because it's been done before, but I'm not sure why there's been a major stink on the WAP song. But Janelle, let's go ahead and put WAP back in context, and so I can go ahead and hear your thoughts on what's been said about the song and the music video overall.
All right. Um, well, first of all, I'm just gonna like come out and say I like this song. The song to me is hella catchy, and the video did it justice to me. Um, I mean, kind of didn't really care for Kylie walking through the video, them stopping the music for her and all that. That was just like, what's the purpose of this? But people do what they have to do to market things. Um, so yeah, I am first gonna start off by saying people had a lot of criticisms about this song. Um, and mostly, Republicans were recognized for having opinions on this song because people like John Kerr and Ben Shapiro, and I mean, I saw a bunch of people on the timeline on Twitter complaining about it and saying how raunchy it was, and um, Ben Shapiro just made like a whole spiel on his show about it. I mean, I didn't, honestly, I don't know who Ben Shapiro is. Just keep it real. And that's not even a joke. I really do not know who he is. And the only reason I know his name is because he commented on this song. I do not watch his show. Didn't even know he had a show because I did not know who Ben Shapiro is. So, he apparently made a big stink about it and brought his wife into it because his wife is a doctor. And they proceeded to proclaim, along with other doctors on social media, which is just kind of wild to me, that it's concerning the way that they're proclaiming that their vaginal areas are so wet. Um, Apparently, it's concerning because it's an indication of a bunch of STDs. Um, I I don't even know where to start with this.
What
Uh,
Janelle, I not to cut you off. When Janelle said it would have been an issue if women is getting wet. I guess for every man, I'm not sure in every local man who is not getting something wet would be looking to get something wet. Because if I come to understand, I'm not to get too not to get out of context, but I really want to put this in context from what I've known about the woman body, right? You would think that if you're making your girl or a woman become wet as a man, that means you're technically doing your job. That would be a very strong indication of what you're doing is technically working, right? That's supposed to be a very good sign to say that that's something positive is going on. So if a guy is with a woman and he's not getting her to get walked up, if there's a new word I'm trying to create, walked up, right? Just so I can laugh at that one. That should be very alarming. So not to say from a doctor, that's kind of concerning to me because I've normally looked for that as a great sign of accomplishment to make a girl WAP. So yeah, that kind of blew me out for her to be for that to be a vaginal sickness.
I I just didn't even really understand where she was going with this. I mean, let me not say she because honestly, he was the one that was proclaiming that his wife said this. Like she was not the one who went on the show and said it. So who knows if he was just doing that for, entertainment purposes. But he claims that his wife said that being too wet, I guess, or as wet as the song describes, is an indication of BV, bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, or trick. Um, I just, like I said, I don't really know where to start with this. I'm not entirely sure how you can um, compare. Like, I'm not really sure where the comparison comes in here. I feel like, every woman has had experiences with that, at the very minimum, a yeast infection. And I don't really see anything comparable between vaginal lubrication and a yeast infection. Like, there are very clear differences, and um, vaginal lubrication is absolutely normal. And so a bunch of doctors actually came out and um, I guess we're kind of going head to head with his quote unquote doctor wife's diagnosis. And saying that, it's kind of ridiculous to say that they're unhealthy or are having vaginal issues. I just, like I said, I was kind of speechless. I don't really know. Like, what would possess you? Like, why would you say something like that? Anyway, let's move on to other, I guess, critiques of this song, because clearly his doctor wife maybe wants to go back to school.
Wait, Jill, hold on. I'm not gonna lie. When you got to trick, you caught me because I didn't know there was something. So not to sound uneducated, guys. All right, don't judge me. I didn't know what trick was. Like when you said trick, I was like trick. Like
I think it's pronounced trichomoniasis.
Trichomoniasis.
I think that's how it's pronounced. But I mean, obviously, everyone has like shortened versions, and so like trick is just what it's called. I am not actually very educated on it myself. I know what it is, in terms of it being some kind of STD or some kind of illness down there. But I mean, I've never had an experience with it, so yeah.
Yeah. All right. To continue on, just to continue on.
I can't. Anyway, so yeah, so basically, Republicans had a fit, and there were a bunch of them that were tweeting their lives away about how vulgar the song was, how it was representing prostitution. It was, I guess, making it so that women lose respectability. What were some of the others? Saying that, I guess, it promoted, the independent woman diatribe, right? That trope, but at the end of the day, at what cost? That was CeeLo Green who said that. I don't even know where he came from with that. Like, he could have just sat there and ate some food, because, like, where have you been this entire time? And that's what you really chose to talk about. I just saw so many tweets just talking about how it was like such a horrible thing. At the end of the day, I think she kind of put a bunch of people in their place. I mean, there were Republican videos going around at some boat party that was blasting her song like days after people were complaining about it. And she just kind of, put them in their place as well. Like, I thought you guys had a problem with this. like, like you're at a boat party, not social distancing, not wearing masks. Like she flat out was like, maybe I should call the FBI. Like, you guys, there's something going on here. So yeah, I mean, it was days on end basically of people complaining about it. I mean, I've still actually seen tweets complaining about it. And like, when did it come out now? Like a week ago, maybe? It's now I guess at the point that it dropped, maybe like a day or two later, it was at the #1 song in the world, entire world. So, congrats to Cardi and congrats to Meg Thee Stallion. I think Meg really could have done with some good news and just good vibes. So I'm really happy about that. But the conversation extended to a lot of celebrities, like I said, and one of them was Russell Brand. So his video actually really intrigued me. He did like a 20-minute video talking about, rap culture and women's values, men's values, society in general, like, where we're headed, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people came down on him for his video because, they called it mansplaining. It was like, you don't really have a place in this conversation. I don't know. I listened to his video and I wanted to hate everything he said, but I didn't. I think he made a lot of sense. I just think that he conflated two different issues. So his video touched on equality and was kind of talking about how women are, I guess, searching for women empowerment and feminism and equality in, I guess, the already established norms. And these already established norms were established by men. So he questions whether it's actually equality to just kind of do the same thing as men, or women empowerment to just kind of do the same thing as men. And that's part of the reason why I say I think he conflates two different issues. Like, I absolutely think that it's equality. I absolutely think that it is about women being able to have the same voice as men. I mean, how long have men been rapping about their genitals and rapping about women's genitals and rapping about sex and whatever else comes along with that, right? And though they may also get critiqued, they generally don't get critiqued for the same reasons. Nobody complains that they're talking about, women's genitals. Nobody complains that they're talking about having sex or being promiscuous. What they complain about is maybe that it's getting to be so commonplace or normal that like children are being influenced by it, or just the what's the word I'm looking for, the I guess the time and place argument, right? So there's a time and place to talk about that. But it's not really. I don't think that I've ever really heard the critique of like you absolutely shouldn't be doing it at all. Like you shouldn't be talking about sex, or you shouldn't be talking about women in that view. I don't know that I've ever heard that. How about you?
No, not necessarily. We can go back to Uncle. The only I'm not saying that other rappers, male rappers, I'm not faced it in certain sense. Uncle Luke did face a lot of heat during his "Me So Horny" era, which at that point that was when the dynamics of freedom of speech was what was being fought for more inside of the musical culture. Now, not to stem away from what you're saying. I think yeah, I understand what you said. Russell Brand was talking about. Russell Brand, not saying he's a major part of our culture. He's used our culture in ways financially endeavor for him. Get him to the Greek is actually a very funny movie. Some of my friends do love it. But in the sense that what he was talking about is doing the same thing. So let's go ahead and address the doing the same thing part, right? The word equality means that as an individual, it's not doing the same thing. It's doing what you want, when you want, how you want it, without anyone being judging you for what you're doing. Now, people, you can never change people's perception
Well,
of.
well, okay, hold on. So let's back up a little bit. And I think that this is part of what I was talking about when I said he was conflating issues. Like equality is, I think your description of equality more speaks to freedom.
Yes.
I don't think that equality and freedom are the same.
Okay,
So
good.
so I think that, I mean, it's one thing to say that you have the freedom to do as you please, because I mean I completely back that. Like I mean, I think I've made it clear I'm pretty liberal. I believe in people being able to do what they want. Um for the most part, as long as it's not harming anyone else. Like I'm great with that. Even to the point where they may harm themselves, because I feel like you should have the right to do something even though it affects your body in any way. Like if you want to kill yourself, like my personal belief, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just my belief, which is exactly what Russell Brand was saying in his video. It's subjective. I personally feel like it is your body and your free will to do with it how, like, whatever you please. And if that means that you want to do something stupid that ends up with you dying, like that was your freedom. That was your freedom. As long as it doesn't kill anybody else, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else's property, anybody else's person. That's just my opinion, right? So, yes, I completely agree with the concept of freedom. I completely agree with being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with those exceptions. And I do believe that women should be entitled to that freedom. But as I said, I don't think that that's what equality is. I think, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. Equality is meaning that like we're all on the same level. We are equal. So if you can do something, I can do something. It's not like there. What you fight for when it comes to equality is to make sure that we're on the same level, not that you have some kind of privilege that allows you to do something when I can't.
That is correct.
Right.
That is definitely correct. So I see what you're saying, because even though equality and freedom are two different things, I can see where they intertwine with each other to prove the point. So I guess that's where the Cardi B, or no, I'm gonna say the WAP video, because Cardi's not the only person who's part of it as well. It's her and Meg, where the intertwine comes in place, because the conversation is what the information is being given, right? Because I think that's what a lot of people is paying attention to when they're trying to use the word, put the word equality on it. But I would like to say this, for the fact that it's being scrutinized the same way is what's causing the unequality part of it, because it's not being equal if you're scrutinizing one thing when, without, I'm not going to say it's this year, because that's the reason why I'm happy. I think the ability for me to come from the Uncle Luke era was a little bit given to see that what they're fighting for now, on a feminine aspect, should have been broken down in early 90s, because we've had other female entertainers, and I mean, we have positive and negative, but we've had other female entertainers in the sense that's came out and said different things, right? In the fact that of what they're trying to portray. And I'm not just to call other rappers. I guess we can call Foxy Brown, Lil Kim, and other rappers who said very derogative things. You know, I mean, I can even go back to Lil Kim. How many licks does it take to get to the center of the pop? And what she was talking about the whole time, make a Sprite can disappear in her mouth. Not to say that we're huh?
I said Foxy Brown with I Taste Just Like Candy. Shauna with, basically Take Me Right Here on the Roof.
Yeah.
There's been so many women that have done it before, and so many men that have done it before. So it begs the question as like, what's the problem?
Well,
What is
no, and I was going to address that, and the reason what I personally think the problem is, what not my problem, what the problem they're having is the power behind Cardi and Megan. Because before, when, not saying Foxy, Lil Kim, and Shauna, a lot of them reach was not going further out or going outside the United States. Yes, they left the country and being stronger. But now, if you look at the power that Cardi B in the show that she's have, right? And that's gonna be another reason why, and I'm using the word power in the reason why she used Kylie Jenner, because a lot of people never was understanding. I saw the power play when I saw Kylie in the video. I looked over to my wife and I laughed, because the first thing I was like, Kylie averages easily 7 million followers to like one of her pictures. So on the power play, Cardi did that smart. She just took all of Kylie's fan and was like, "Yo, watch me." She took all her fans, which are another couple millions, and was like, "Watch me," right? And I feel like whenever a woman in this era demonstrates power, right, we will always have the conversation of equality. Because at this moment in our social era, right, women dominates our attention. Like, don't get me wrong, men I would say in the last 2 years has been struggling to keep up. There's only one male rapper who's keeping up, and yeah, I'm not even a fan, but technically he's keeping up in a sense that he's kind of figure out how to utilize the power of what he has, right? And it's the rapper 6ix9ine. I'm not a big fan, but I have to give him credit where credit is due, because he's learned how to utilize the power. But for what they're doing in their stance, I feel like they're showing a lot. They've gone beyond reach, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why they've been scrutinized the way they have, right? And for the fact that they're for what they're empowering, I would like to say it like this. And I felt like Cardi B talked about this a couple months ago, or one of her interviews. Not to judge. She says that she talks about, or she's making music about, is what's interesting to people. Now, in the retrospect, it's gonna sound dirty and wrong for me to say this, right? At males, not saying we don't like the breasts, or I'm not sure how derogative I can get, but males are looking at that part of the woman and paying attention to it. Now she's like, yo, if that's what's garnering my attention, I'm gonna capitalize on it, right? For years, and I'm gonna say this, and let's take the word years. I'm gonna use the word generation, right? If you go back to my era growing up, we idolized Hugh Hefner. Idolized, and I'm using the word idolize. Like, to most people, Hugh Hefner was a modern day superhero. Because if you're a little boy, a perverted little boy, right, or you're a boy in general, with what society was telling men back in the day, because let's think about what society was telling men, right, that we're not to marry, right, we're supposed to have more than one woman, multiple women, and have multiple kids. During that era, you have to had an environment that provided that closure. For real sense, he did dominate that era. He dominated in the ways when you think about what we look for, what we liked, and what we achieved. right? And that was in the early 80s. Not just to get the 80s part of the conversation. Now, if you think about what 90s music has shown from the male perspective, right? We've been looking at more sexuality in women, or the clothing becoming smaller and smaller. Like, yes, during that era, the Playboy bunnies, we were seeing them in bathing suits every now and then, but we got to the point where we were at TV where women were being portrayed in so many sense. So when woman is being portrayed in a negative light and is not being paid properly, it's an issue. But if they're compensating properly off the endeavor that they were being, I would say, demoralized for generations, it's an issue. I have a problem with that. I'm actually happy that Cardi and Megan is capitalizing in some of the assets that they have, in the sense that, yeah, people may agree to disagree, because I feel like that's really where the conversation of equality is coming to, is the agree to disagree part of the conversation. But we shall agree to disagree that some of the same things that we're talking about we want to stop, especially as some of those musicians, is stuff that they like. Because some of those people who is talking against it are some of the most perverted people. I don't want, we don't have to go through people's search history to prove a lot of their points, but they're sitting here trying to stop something where I will say this: it's like wine to me, right? Or it's gonna be like wine and hard liquor. Not everybody like Hennessy. Not everybody like wine. But at the end of the day, they're both gonna get you drunk. You just got to pick which one suits your narrative even better. So on the stem of equality, I feel like they personally, and not to be taken out of context, I'm gonna need them to back off Megan. I'm gonna need them to back off Cardi. Right? If you don't like it, don't watch it. If you love it, play it. Just as much as I would say you guys would treat any other individual male character out there. Because for one, when Mystical came out with I'm gonna use the BET version, Shake It Fast, right? When it was Shake It AAA, the first line Mystical said, and not to say, he said, "I'm gonna show up in the edited version." He said, "I'm gonna show up with my mic in my hand." Right?
Yeah, we already know what that means.
Right? And that's the edited version. So in the retrospect of what he was saying, if for one, any woman would say this: if a guy knocks on their front door and show up with his mic in his hand, he's gonna go to jail or he's gonna get beat down. There's one or two things, because the only reason why a guy will get away with that mic in the hand conversation is if, for one, that's his girl, right? And they've had a couple conversations which makes her approve of him doing that. But no guy can should be able to show up to a girl house with a mic in my hand. That's like you're showing up to catch a charge, right? But Mystical stated in the song that he showed up at the party with a mic in his hand, meaning he don't know nobody there. He just showed up there, right? And if you think about what Shake It Fast did back in the day, that was considered a song. And we can take about one of the biggest songs from my era, right? And that came from Juvenile. Yo, for the 99 and 2000s. Girl, you look good when you bat that, right? And that song was basically been dedicated to girls just running out, right? I wish you guys could hear my sound effects for running out, right? And just starts twerking. But when you think about it, those songs will never get hit, and that song for male in the last generation to this is considered a classic, right? But it wasn't looked at it was an issue, but because they did something as a classic, like, I'm gonna say this, I've learned that if you want to kill something, give it no power. If you want to make something go strong, you just keep making noise. So in a sense that I feel like they're trying to stop Cardi B's thing, I think they're more empowering her more than ever, because they're gonna start including people who technically would have never heard a track to go, what did she say in the song? Let me press play. Right? And not to be in a social media era, that's what you want. So in the sense that she was right. If you guys, it's either you guys love me, right, or you guys hate me, or you're gonna end up showing up and critique me. But as long as you watch the video, yo, I'm fine, yo. So just go ahead and press play. And that's why she ended up at number one. And I would say this: there's a couple of things that I could say she said in the song that people could put into context and take out of context, right? Which would have been subliminal disses towards her other female compatriots, which they didn't even pay attention to. But not to pour any more fuel in anybody's fire to be taken out of context in that same instance. But what I would like to say this is the power structure that is shown, because during this moment, Cardi B had the opportunity, to speak with Joe Biden. So while people are sitting here bashing her for some form of equality, she's sitting here trying to get stuff done for women empowered and to move our culture and generation forward, in the sense that she's trying to meet with some form of political leader. So stop trying to bash and let's figure out what's going on first.
So, okay, I completely agree. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's really about the power that she has right now, and how widespread her reach is. I think it really comes down to, a lot of her critiques come down to that double standard. And I mean, women have kind of always had to sit back for, decades upon decades and watch the double standard, and men just kind of assume that they'll always have it. And right now she's taking that power away from men. And I think that's what's really threatening. The double standard of men constantly sexualizing women, but then having an issue with, women sexualizing themselves, right? So you want to be able to do it. I mean, we had, as we said, we've had generations of, men rapping or making songs about, I mean, look at Snoop Dogg, proclaiming that he's a pimp for like his entire career, right? But all of a sudden it's not okay for Cardi B to, quote unquote, make prostitution okay. Like, was that not the same thing? Like, were you not advertising pimps and prostitutes at one point?
Not to cut you, Snoop Dogg was directing pornos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm strictly speaking on the music right now.
All right, bet.
And he's not the only one, obviously. I mean, I was like 13 listening to Slob on My Knob, as Cardi B, pointed out. Like, these songs have been a thing. It's really just, like I said, a matter of the double standard. And a lot of men who chime in will have the issue with, like, well, you're, as I said, promoting promiscuity and promoting prostitution. But then, you look back on it and it's kind of like, men want to be able to have that control over it. You want to be able to have control over how women act, how women speak, how women approach men. Because at the end of the day, you've been rapping for decades and you've been talking for decades. I mean, not just rappers, like men in general. I mean, we can look at our lovely president and, the locker room talk that so many men were coming to the defense of and saying, yeah, that's normal, right? Men talk about this regularly. You talk about women's bodies, you talk about what you do to them. And then all of a sudden it's an issue for women to say the literally exact same things.
Can I take a steal just to put something in context? I would like to take a stab at that locker room conversation for a second. I know that guys do talk about women in the locker room. There's no if, ands, but, or maybe about it. But I've never been in a locker room where I've heard another guy tell another guy to run up to a girl and grab her bride of flowers. That's not locker room talk. That was rape talk. I just want to make sure I said that. Go ahead and continue, ma'am.
Facts. Yeah. So, the concept of the fact that there is power in it, and empowerment for women to kind of be equal, and have that equality with what men have been doing for so long that they almost take it for granted, is really the issue here. It's really about, men realizing that the power is being taken from them because now there's somewhat of an equality, right? And instead of looking at themselves, for all of these decades, I mean, really and truly, we can go back centuries, honestly, but we're not going to, go back that far. Instead of looking at themselves and saying, this really isn't a great way to be, this isn't really a great way to portray myself, this isn't really a great way to speak about women, instead of saying, okay, let me curb my own behavior, let me not behave in this way, and let me not speak in this way. Now, men are seeing women do the same thing that they've been doing for decades and have that level of equality, and then saying, whoa, 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 like, why are you doing this? Because that's not appropriate. So it's really at that point about controlling women's behavior and saying, like, I can do it, but like, you can't do it. Like, that's not appropriate for you. And that really doesn't make any sense to me. So it's not to say that I completely am, in agreement with what the song teaches, what all of these songs may teach, and the influence that it may have on society in general, not just on women, but in general. I'm not necessarily in agreement with it. I will enjoy the songs, don't get me wrong. But it has been happening for so long. Like, this isn't something new. It's just something new to come out of women. To this extent, and with so much power behind it, and with so much, widespread reach, that it's almost, I think, a little bit shocking, right? But getting back to what Russell Brand was saying, I think a lot of people gave him, slack because of just the fact that he, like I said, I think he conflated the issues. Like, he was talking about, women reaching for that equality by living by the standards that men have made. And I don't think that there's, I don't think that there's anything necessarily unequal about that. Inherently, that is equal, right? Because those are the standards for everybody at this point, right? If women were to decide to make different standards, and then live by those different standards, whether they completely outweigh men's, standards that they've already made or not, then I think we can have a different conversation. But if these are the standards that they choose to live by, because of that level of freedom that women have, then I don't think there's anything really wrong in saying that it is equality or it is woman empowerment, right? But what I will say is that I actually really agreed with his second part of the conversation, where he was speaking to the basically the denigration of where society has reached, right? And it's not, he wasn't faulting, Cardi B and Meg. He wasn't faulting, women who live up to these standards in music that men have made. It was a general statement. It was talking about, where are we going in society? And I think he's speaking from a more of a spiritual level, because he mentioned in the video that he's coming from a place of sex addiction, or I guess being exposed to sex addiction. So he flat out said that he usually avoids, pornography or any other like sexually charged media, right? He says that, he doesn't like the effect that it has on him. So he doesn't, he tries not to listen to it, or he tries not to feed into it, right? I like that take, but that's neither here nor there. I do think that I'm in agreement with him when he speaks on how the music and the art and just generally speaking, the culture behind all of that has affected society and where we're going. So I think one of his points was that, women should kind of strive to different values, but not necessarily saying that they should strive to different values because they're women. I think he was more so attempting to say that we should strive to different values as far as women empowerment, to kind of be above men and their standards. But of course, you can't really put that on women because, like I said, men have been doing this for decades, and with the refusal of looking at their own behavior, and attempting to change their own behavior. So I don't think that it's really about women or men being charged with changing the narrative or changing the values or changing the standards. But I do think that it is important to look at where society is moving if we just settle on this standard that is, quite frankly, beneath us. I think that goes for both genders. And I think that, like I said, that was part of his point, is that, this isn't really the standard that we should be striving for equality on. Is the sexualization of men to women and women to men. It's more of a, I guess, I don't want to say animalistic standard, but I mean that's along the lines of where I'm going with this. It's not a standard that we should be striving towards. And I think, once you listen to the rest of his video, like the second part of his video, you kind of get the gist of where he was going with that. But like I said, the conflation, I think, is what pissed people off. Not to mention, just his place in the conversation when it wasn't asked for. And like I said, he kind of did something similar to what you did in the beginning when you were talking about, feminism and equating it to equality, right? So I kind of understood the critiques on his video, but I also feel like there were a few good gems in there. He was kind of dropping a little bit of knowledge from a spiritual level and from almost like a level of human behavior that I think that a lot of people don't reach until they get older and wiser, right? So yeah, I think those are kind of, my takes on it personally. But as you said, Cardi kind of turned the conversation around, and she's been doing that a lot over the past maybe couple of years, kind of to use her voice and use her platform to speak to what the people actually want to be speaking about. Because she made the comment, as if there is nothing more important going on in the world that Republicans have to chime in on her song. So, when it comes back to the aspect of politics, then we jump into Cardi B's conversation with Joe Biden. Did you hear it?
I heard a couple snippets of things that she was talking about, which I think it's a very intriguing conversation. Never to say the least, to hear a musician talk to a political figure in the retrospect of narratives. I think last time we touched on this topic, I talked about voting for narratives. I'm very strong in to vote for what you believe in, and I felt like a lot of things that she kind of, I would like to say, to start to identify with, right, when she was having this conversation with him, and what she's hoping to see. And I would like to say hoping to see from her eyes, because she can't speak for everybody. And I like the fact that I think she reiterated a couple of times, is that she's speaking from herself. But I think let's get to the retrospect of power in that sense, for Cardi B to draw some attention from a political candidate during this moment, right? We're going to use the word power. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's where this conversation technically is stemming from, is what she had. I'm not to backtrack, he said something about Russell Brand that I guess I didn't caught on the video that actually changed my a lot made me analyze a lot when he said when you talked about him coming from a sex addiction, because celebrities and sex addiction is a lot. They're exposed to that way more based on their financial status. So it made it. I would say this. So you kind of opened my mind back to the video. I may have to go rewatch it, because there's more for me to analyze from what he is saying, because there's a lot of passion in that moment. And I could put my own spin on thought of it, but I think I may take things too far out of context for me to jump into the part of the sex addiction. But in the sense of Cardi B talking to Joe Biden, and I'm using that in the reference based on power and what we've have as a power in narrative. Last episode we talked about Kamala Harris, right? And I want to say this: the power structure in this world, especially in the United States, is slowly shifting, guys. And in the sense that woman empowerment is becoming so much more bigger, better, right? And stronger than ever before. Me seeing Cardi B speak with the president has proved that narrative, because we can take people from journeys, because a lot of people is talking about taking her out of context. You can't take and
I like how you just said that he's the president.
yeah, well,
To the
vice,
universe.
you know, let's put it, but to speak to the Democratic nominee running for president, just not to get too far out of context, but to show how far a woman has come from and where women are heading to. Not to take Cardi B's journey out of context, right? We can talk about her struggles, her stripping, gang affiliation for her moving forward and what she was saying in a positive light, right? Because lately she's talking about staying out of those territories, right? But to watch her speak to the Democratic nominee for the future vice president Joe Biden, and to start asking questions, and I would like to say that she may not ask the best questions, but she's asking questions that matters to her, as prove what was going on. Now, let's take a shift to politics. I've had the opportunity to take a couple look into the DNC, Democratic nominee convention, DNC, Democratic nomination convention, if I said that correctly.
Democratic National Convention.
National convention, right? I've had the opportunity to watch it, and I've heard great speeches. I've heard speeches that don't make any sense, but I mean, there goes politics, right? But I've realized some of the strongest voices that I've been hearing in this moment has been from our women. I'm a I'm a big fan of Michelle Obama. I think I identify with her a lot, in the sense that she says things like she doesn't like politics, right? And
I
and
agree.
no, and I mean, I'm gonna say this: the reason why I don't like politics, because yes, we're talking about voting, and we have narratives and for each side of the spectrum, right? But I've come to realize sometimes yes, we need somebody better in power, but most of these people narrative is being pushed by either or. It's not really being pushed for the people 99% of the time. You know what I mean? So when she started with that, I felt like she identified with me as an individual, but changes need to get made, right? So I felt like those are some of the strong points, and she reiterated when we go low, when we go high, and it brought me to a conversation that I've been having with a lot of people, and I've had some conversations with Republicans, based on the matter, because I'm gonna go on Facebook. This is gonna be out of context. I have a friend, I forgot her name because she's not that important, right? Whenever she goes and she posts stuff on Facebook, it's always something negative. And don't get me wrong, I understand. Yes, she's a Republican because she doesn't like Joe Biden. To me, there's nothing wrong with that. But I look at it and I was like, yo, if I could scroll through your timeline, you don't have not one positive thing to say about your opposing factor, right? And if you're consistently pushing negative, I see why the narrative and why our country is divided. And I've listening to what is being pushed at the convention. Like, I heard people keep saying that a lot of people is not looking. We're not getting any policies. Policies is not being pushed. right? And I've listened to a lot of the speeches, and I'm not saying policy is not being pushed. A lot of people just want unity. Like we've been fighting so long. Like let's stop. I mean, we can go from defunding the police because police is fighting against black people. That's one of the reasons why the defund the police movement has started, right? Police brutality is crazy. We're talking about how the people is not fighting for people, but we're in a crossroads right now with an America, guys, that we're so divided that it's like people are saying there's no recovering from this.
Yeah.
There's no recovering from this, and that is sad. So when I heard her say that she has no love for politics, it touched me right there. Right? Not saying I'm telling you guys to vote for Joe Biden or to vote against Donald Trump or vote for Donald Trump, right? But why if both political parties is not pushing any unity, where do we go? I would like to say this, and I'm taking a good stab because I know we're chopping up in different segments. Within the DNC happening and the RNC that's coming up, I would love to see more unity being pushed. I see the DNC started already, right? I see those are some of the things that Cardi B was asking for. What is the process of us moving forward? What is the goal for people, for our people, right? I would like to say this. Not to take away from white people because I have a lot of white friends who has the same conversation, but their conversation is what happens after this, right? Are they still friends with their friends that they love? Are they still friends with me? Right? I'm like, what does that matter? I don't really care about your political endeavor. I love you regardless. I think I've I've get along with people even though let me say it, I think there's a better way of saying I'm okay with agreeing to disagree. Right? Because and not everybody is gonna like pink, some of us like blue. But we can agree that I like the color you don't. We can move forward from that. But for where we're standing right now is like there's no way to move forward. We need to have some unity towards pushing this. I felt like we need to do more and we're doing less. If I could say anything else in that,
I think there's so many people in the country right now that I mean I tend to usually agree with what you said where like, you have your opinion and I have mine, right? But there's
Mm-hmm.
so much radicalism on both sides of the aisle right now that even when the most logical things are right there in your face, people will still pick up for Trump. And like, I can agree to disagree, but like, not when you're backing, racism and backing sexism and like that right there is not really like, I can't like, why would I want you as a friend? Like that speaks to your character. And I think that because I think he did such a good job of polarizing the United States. You have
Mm-hmm.
so many people who are like, gung ho Republican. I don't care what he does wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is what we're backing, and I just can't agree with that. Because I can really sit down and say, okay, there were some things that he actually did that I'm like, okay, cool, that was a good move, or even certain things that he may have said that I listened to and I was just like, all right, that's an interesting thought. Like, if we could actually get a plan towards that and, make that happen, that would be good. That would be a good move, right? But when you have someone who is so radical that no matter what he says, even if he's ridiculously wrong, even if his character is just, the worst of the worst, they will still back him. And I think that's a huge problem right now because it's like, I want to say that I'm highly logical, and it's like a logical person and a logical brain is looking at somebody who is trying to make illogical things seem logical, and I just can't get down with that. I'm okay with Republicans when they say, "Hey, I like some of his policies. I like
Mm-hmm.
some that he's doing. I appreciate it because it benefits me." I mean, like I said before, people are going to vote for what benefits them, right?
That's correct.
I am okay with the concept of you voting for somebody who benefits you. What I'm not okay with is just kind of trying to stick up for the negativity and stick up for the way that he's basically destroying the country by pulling us apart. So I like I said, I kind of agree with you to an extent, but I think that that's really the problem here. Like, I'm not looking for somebody to try to just sweep everything bad under the rug and be like, no, Trump is the best. I'm looking for be real with me. Be real. Tell me, like, you agree with certain things that benefit you, but like he's actually a really shitty person, or like he really did something that was, not great, right? So I think that a lot of the DNC speeches that we've heard so far, like you said, it really does center around unity.
Yes.
There were a little, there were a few things, like Bernie Sanders' speech addressed like healthcare, Medicare, and he was talking about the fact that Joe Biden and him ultimately have the same goal, but they have different plans on how to get there. Obviously we all know that Bernie is more of a socialist. He would like, everything to be, equal and free for everybody, and Bernie is not so far on the left of the Democratic scale, right? So yeah, there is a little bit of policy being, thrown out. It's just, as you said, it's mostly about unity. It's mostly about how the country cannot survive another 4 years.
Not like this.
Like, everybody at each other's throats, everybody, just being completely radical and just fighting everyone amongst each other. I mean, you can't have a country that is not unified and expect them to still have a place on the international scale, right? That's, to me, another conversation, because it involves, international relations and other countries and how they're looking at us, and that can literally be a whole another podcast.
Yeah. Sweet. Oh, well, I definitely want to make sure, just so you guys know, that is coming, because the world is getting connected. It's not like back in the day where
no, it is connected.
The newspaper.
It is connected. It's
no,
not
I mean, no, I would like to. No, it's not. When I say not connected in the way that it used to be before. It used to have to be the newspaper before something gets thrown across. When something happens in less than 5 minutes, somebody in China sees it. Mm-hmm. So I would say that will be definitely another podcast in a sense. I guess, elections is going on everywhere in a sense. I do know, because especially we do have a Jamaican audience as well. Jamaica's election does come up in September 3rd, if I said that correctly. It's the 3rd or the 4th? The 3rd.
So, just before we jump into Jamaica's elections, I did want to mention this because I think even myself, when I saw that AOC had done her speech, she did her speech and she nominated Bernie Sanders. And I think I kind of just wasn't, maybe it's just like I wasn't paying attention enough. And then towards the end of her speech, I heard the name Bernard Sanders, and I was like, whoa, wait, what? Like, was this last year? Was this from the like, I was really confused. So I kind of I literally like gut checked myself and went on Twitter, like, searching AOC and like the nomination. So I just want to make it clear for everyone who was kind of just as confused as I was. AOC nominated Bernie Sanders because those were the rules. She was, I think she came out on Twitter and said it herself, but she was asked to nominate Bernie Sanders because every Democratic candidate who made it past a certain level, I guess, or a certain number of votes in the Democratic primary, they have to be nominated by the rules of the convention, right?
Oh, you're right. I think I remember now, Janelle. It's basically how many delegates, because he did get a lot of delegates. So right. That's where that went. You're right. You're definitely correct.
So, but to be clear, although she nominated Bernie Sanders, she has already made it clear that she will be voting for Joe Biden. And Bernie Sanders himself has already also made it clear that he is not contesting Joe Biden's, nomination or candidacy in any way. The Democratic Party has backed Joe Biden, and that's who the Democratic Party will be voting for. So I just wanted to clear up that confusion for people who did not know or who was confused, because like I said, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, wait, maybe I Googled the wrong thing. Maybe I put the wrong thing into the YouTube search bar. So jumping back into the elections.
Yeah. I'm kind of happy you put some clarity on that, because I would say this for anybody who, we're in an era where people don't research information. They just kind of take it as face value. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like the podcast where we do, because we get a chance to kind of mentally go check each other in that sense. As I was saying about the Jamaican election, not to get too deep into it, because I do live in the United States of America. I do have my political preferences in Jamaica, but that's just stemming from what I was grown. And I would like to say right now they're doing awesome, but politics is politics. So I don't want to give or take. Jamaica election is coming up. It is going to be, because confirm it on September the 3rd. There are multiple parties included. Guys, please make sure you go out and vote for your narrative. I would like to say this for my narrative and for people that I know. I don't know a lot of PMPs. Don't hate me. I know a lot of lay brights. In the retrospect, that I do know people's going to go out there and vote for their narrative. Please take your time. Look and research all your. In Jamaica, it's in parishes. All are your local areas. All the people who's going to be running your parishes. Make sure that they're going to be giving you your narrative and giving you what you need. So I would like to say this, please, guys, and let's keep this safe and civil. I think we've gotten to a point where COVID has shown us a difference in ourselves, where we should be able to find ways to unify than to be being divided over political endeavors. I saw a couple of things that me and my wife has came across, and I'm not to take too far the context, I see that people are talking about drive-through voting. I think I'm very, very strongly want to see how that works. It may take a little bit longer, but I think that's a very good way. As I said, I had a conversation with my Republican friend, who is strongly Republican, but he, as you said something earlier, about vote for your value. What he said, that he doesn't like Trump speaking and personality, but when it comes to what financially he benefits from, or where his money sits, or his investment, Trump does go ahead and support his narrative. And I was like, I can't even hate him for saying that, because he's like, I'm voting for my money, because at this point, it's gonna sound evil. People is not really what his narrative is. So I can appreciate that. I guess that's the conversation, to agree to disagree, right? But yes, in Jamaica, guys, please go out and take your opportunity to vote safely. Make sure your voice is being heard. Whatever color you support, go ahead and do so safely. Now, Janelle, before we go ahead and jump to the end of the podcast today, is there anything else you would like to go ahead and throw out there before we let's just move?
Just, my comments on the election are almost the same as my comments on this election. You're never going to find a perfect candidate. I think a lot of people, especially in this cancel culture that, social media and society has cultivated, I think, you find that one thing or the couple things that you may disagree with a candidate on, and you just automatically want to write them off. You want them to quit their jobs. You want them to be removed. And that's not real life, guys. That's not reality. No one is going to be perfect. No candidate is going to be perfect, but no individual is going to be perfect. So whether a candidate has, a difference of opinion or perspective than maybe more forward-thinking sectors of society, one issue or a couple topics that you may differ with a candidate about is not really a reason to completely write them off. So I will say, just like we try to do, put things in context. Don't just don't just write people off for one or two things that you may disagree with, or one or two things that you may feel as though they're, behind the curve on. There are a lot of older candidates in Jamaica in politics. As they say, the older candidates do not like to, retire for what reason, I don't know. There's not a lot of young blood in politics in Jamaica, and so I think that the older candidates tend to kind of be, I guess, just behind the curve on a lot of things with the newer generation. And so the newer generation gets frustrated with that and just decides, like, screw him, screw her. We don't need them in power. We don't want them in power. At the end of the day, politics is about who is actually going to represent you and represent you well, whether you disagree with them on one or two topics or not. So to me, like I said, it's really not about finding the perfect candidate. Even you yourself, if you were to run for, any office or, be in politics, you would not agree or disagree with everyone 100% of the time, and you would not be perfect to everyone out there. So keep that in mind and stop attempting to cancel everybody because of one disagreement. That's all I'm saying.
I'm happy you said that. So I guess I'm gonna take the final curve with the conversation. Generally said something very important about cancel culture and about how cancel culture works and why it works. Based on that sense, you summed it up extremely well. I would say this, guys, before we cancel something, right? Because even if we were going to cancel stuff, a lot of times we can cancel ourselves because none of us is perfect. And the same scrutiny that we tend to put people under, we ourselves can't take that form of scrutinization. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I just made it up. But scrutinization.
Right word in both contexts.
Yeah, but to say the least, I would say, guys, before anybody cancel anybody's culture or cancel anything, put some thought into it, put some research into it, put some face value into it, and I feel like by doing so, right, learning how to stop cancel everything so fastly, we will be able to learn how to bridge the gap, not just in America, not just in Jamaica, but in every other country, because as we can be able to see, this is an election year in a lot of countries, and it's being shown in every form and shape. So I always like to say this, guy, if there's one thing I would like you guys to take away from this week's episode, in the sense of equality, right? Without unity, we can't have none of these things. So I would like to say that, and that's not even a fiction. Guys, that's our episode today of Just Context. Do me a favor, if you heard anything that you like that stick out to you, or you want to be entertained a little bit more by some of the conversation we're having, feel free, drop a message in the comment box, hit a like, share, and subscribe button for me, please. I'm begging you, just so we can go ahead and keep this motion rolling. Peace.